Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first launch of our financial literacy workshop series. Michigan Works Southwest and Kalamazoo RESA is extremely excited to bring this series to the communities that we serve across 4 counties that includes Kalamazoo, Calhoun, St. Joseph, and Branch counties. So if you are watching this after the live version today, please don't forget to log on to Eventbrite or the MichiganWorksSouthwest.org website and go to our events page to sign up for future workshops that will be happening every other week, where we bring in our banking industry experts, where they will share their knowledge across a wide variety of banking issues, topics, agendas, and to answer questions that you might have for your financial future. Today's workshop is entitled You Can Bank on It. And Michael from Comerica Bank is joining us today to give his expert advice on what that actually means. And real quick, just a quick overview. This workshop today will cover what not everyone has knowledge of the banking industry, or even might have had a bad experience in their past. Today, we're going to take a journey and work through this vetted banking professional through general banking services, helping us build a positive relationship with financial institutions. So Mike, thank you for joining us today and volunteering your time to share your expertise with us. And I will be handing it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. So it's Mike D from Comerica Bank. And just a little background about me. I've been with Comerica Bank for over 22 years here in the Michigan community, working with nonprofits and individuals just like who are attending today's workshop about banking needs. And so at Comerica Bank, we're always looking to exceed expectations of what a bank can be. And personally, I want to make sure that you as bank customers are successful, because a bank's success is based on successful customers. And so we're always out there looking to help you be the best customer with the best information that you can have. And so we're going to talk about You Can Bank on It today. There's a lot of slides. I'm not going to cover all of the slides. And there's a participants participation guide also. So if you're hearing this and you want to have that information, reach out to Carissa and they'll get you that information. Then if you have a question, ask it to them. They'll get back to me and I'll respond usually within 24 to 48 hours. So that way you can have an answer to help you out in a question that we may not answer today as we go through the presentation. We're going to do an 8-week sessions every other week with multiple other members of the West Michigan CRA Association. So I appreciate you attending all the different sessions that we have. So I'm going to share my screen now and we're going to get going. So if someone could just wave at me and let me know that they can see it. Perfect. And here we go. And so when you think about You Can Bank on It, it's really we're going to be asking questions about differences between banks, credit unions, products and services. Some questions you might have as we go through the process. And in the participants guide, there's going to be pre-training survey. Take a few minutes to read through it. But I'm going to ask you, if you have a perception or a negative perception of a bank, why do you think you have that? And how can we overcome that perception? Because we want to be a bank of your choice, be it us here at Comerica Bank or any of my fellow West Michigan CRA associations, which are all member banks in this organization. So think about that, because we want to be there to help you be successful. So we're going to talk about needs, how to shop around, products and services, just get a flavor about everything along the way. So now the big differences between a bank and a credit union. Banks, our clients, we call customers. Credit unions, you have to be a member. And usually credit unions require a membership based on a certain need, meaning, for an example, say you're a teacher and the teachers decide to create a credit union. You have to be a teacher to be in the credit union, where with a bank, we don't require a membership in anything. We just like you to be a customer. Banks are typically owned by shareholders. Credit unions are not-for-profit organization and are owned by their members. And as you can see, we both do pretty much the same thing, except for we have certain areas where we may be better at something than they are, and they may be better than something than we are. That's normal about competition across the financial world. Everybody seems to be really close to doing the same thing, but there's always a little bit of difference. And so that's important when you're looking at things. You ask those questions to shop around. Another important aspect is in the banks, if you're saving money or using a bank that's recognized by the FDIC, a Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, your deposits are insured up to $250,000 per depositor by their rules and regulations and ownership categories. So I always tell folks it's important to read that if you have that to understand how that works and how you can protect your money, because it's important to understand that. The flip side is on a credit union, they have an NCUA, which acts pretty close along to the same lines in FDIC that helps, again, protect the depositors' funds in that credit union. Will that guarantee all your money is safe? I always tell folks, we hope we never have to find out if it's safe or not in the future. But it is, back in 08, I should say 07 through 09, we had some big scares in some fairly big banks about figuring out if those deposits were going to be protected by the FDIC, because at that time, the minimum balance or maximum balance that they would cover was $100,000 based on their deposit rules. And during that time, they raised it to $250,000. So hope we never get to that point again where we have to ask those questions. So you want to assess strengths through when you're looking at developing relationships with a financial institution. How convenient is it to you? Do they have a lot of retail locations? Do they have automated teller machines? And the reason why I say automated teller machines, when I talk about that, I'm talking ATMs that are branded with that institution's name. Because when you go outside their ATMs, so an example, if you go to a financial institution, again, I'll pick on Comerica Bank, you go to the bank and the ATM's on the side of the wall, it's outside normal hours, you do a transaction, you do not have fees when you use your own ATM machine. But now if I go and use my Comerica Bank ATM card and I go to PNC, I'll have a transaction, but I'm going to have fees based on that transaction because I'm inside the ATM network, but I'm outside my branded ATM teller network. Of course, look at your customer service phone numbers and email, website, what is their mobile banking apps and smartphone apps. I will tell folks, when you have mobile banking apps and smartphones, we're going to have a fraud prevention session. You need to be careful on how you access that so you don't expose your information. And we always work at reasonable accommodations if needed for our client who are members or clients of our institution. It's pretty straightforward. When you work with financial institutions, they're going to have different deposit products, credit products, and a wide range of other products and services that you may not know, but you may come in. I always tell folks, you don't need to know everything, but if you have a good idea of what you're looking for, the person you have a relationship will help you figure out what you're looking for. I was talking to Juan and we were talking, home ownership, and it morphed into a conversation about risk management. because you want to make sure you manage risk on things that may affect your income. And that's a conversation that the banker will help you have and look to help you with the decision with. So when you're thinking deposit products, you're thinking about savings accounts, checking accounts, CDs, which are called certificates of deposit, and money market. And they all have kind of rules and regulations that you're going to need to learn about. The flip side is on credit products, credit cards, lines of credit, installment loans, mortgages. Those are things that we're all going to have to help you out. But you need to, again, shop around, ask questions, read the terms and conditions of the product. I always tell folks that, the funny thing was when they were opening the deposit account, I would give them a whole bunch of paper, right? But I always would highlight the most important areas. But I said, there's a lot of other things you need to understand about your terms and conditions of your deposit account. Now, if you'd like to read them, I recommend that. If you have a problem sleeping, read it at night. It will put you to sleep because it is not exciting. But it's important that you know what they are so you understand that when you go in and you want to make a deposit of a check, based on your relationship with the bank, your deposit amounts and relationship, and what they're going to follow, because the FDIC allows the banks to follow certain rules and regulations and how they release funds from a check. Because remember, a check is only a promise to pay. So when you present it to us, we have to then take it, transport it to the bank that it was written on. That bank then has to go to that checking account holder and verify that funds are there before it sends it back to us and we provide it to you. So that all takes time. It used to take a lot longer than it did in the past, but it still has a window of time where something can happen and break that chain where you wouldn't receive those funds, and a financial institution does not want you to access something that may cause you to have an overdraft in the future. And it's hard to explain, and it's something maybe we can look into if you have questions in the future, but it's something to think about. Just an example. I'm just going to go ahead and go past this. Like I said, we have lots of slides to go. Other financial institution providers you can look at, but they're all going to probably be more expensive than a traditional financial institution that you can work with, meaning a bank or a credit union. You think about it. You take your paycheck and you go to a check cashing store. They're going to charge you a percentage of that check. And it's going to be greater than a monthly service charge on a checking account typically. Or if you can get your check to direct deposit, a lot of financial institutions will waive that monthly service charge. You just need to understand the terms and conditions of that account. But if you're going to pay a 10% fee on your check when you go to a payday lender to cash it, if your check's $1,000, you give them $100 on the top. If the monthly fee at a bank or financial institutions is $15 or $25, look at, you just spent an extra $75 by doing that. So think about those things when you go to the other non-traditional organizations. Financial institutions, we're here to help you, save money, help you spend your money, manage your money, borrow your money, and we're going to give you ideas to protect your money, because there's a lot of folks out there that are always looking to have access to our money. You never think about it, but you're online and you're doing something and you put your credit, you're going to get a month free, and you put your credit card information because that's the requirement. I almost want to think, if we did a survey, probably 80% of the people that do that do not remember to go to that next month and cancel their service, and they automatically going to get charged another month and another month and another month. And because they've authorized that transaction, that is not a transaction that a financial institution can recognize as being fraudulent, because you provided them information, you provided them the okay to make that transfer. So it's important to follow through on that kind of stuff. We are going to pass this participants guide section. Please look at it and go ahead and do it. So when you're looking at different financial institutions, look at kind of 6 things, your needs and access, time frames. I mean, are they open on the weekend? How late are they open during the week? What kind of access do they have after hours through their online products and services? So an example would be if you have the ability to take a picture of your check and deposit your check through your phone, if you do it after 9 o'clock, maybe that's their cutoff time, meaning anything before 9 o'clock you deposit, using your phone is today's business. Whereas if you do it at 9:01, it's considered the next day business. Now, again, understanding that will help make this beneficial for you. Understand the different, checking accounts, savings accounts, the debit cards. A lot of debit cards now are going to come with a Visa or American Express logo, so they act like a traditional credit card, but it's automatically going to take it out of your checking account. Understand their overdraft and overdraft fee policies. And again, if you need additional available services, what are they? And then, I hate to say this, but the internet is a great place to shop around because all that information is very readily available for you to have. I mean, I can tell you go to Comerica Bank's website, we're going to list a whole lot of information right up front for you. So you can look at all the different accounts, checking and savings right up front. So you can be better informed when you start windowing it down. I always tell folks it's not just about the product, but it's also about the service, right? If you don't care and all you worry about is that you can deposit your check and you can take the money out, you're never going to talk to anybody, you might be the person who's looking for that internet bank. But if you want to have someone to help you out and answer questions about a fraud transaction, that internet bank may not provide that service because they're not providing, anything else in any other category. So again, shopping around. So key takeaways about opening an account that I tell folks is, number one, you need to make sure that you have an up-to-date ID in today's environment for all the financial institutions, meaning that, if you don't have a driver's license or an ID card or passport, that of course you have your birth certificate, your social security information, and some additional information to help identify who you are, because now financial institutions have to identify their customers when they open an account. Otherwise, we are stopped from moving forward because we cannot identify our client. And that's all laws that have been passed since when we had the tragedy in New York City many years ago now. All the laws changed in how we identify and keep records of our clients and customers that we work with.
Michael, do you mind if I ask?
Well, of course, yes.
Okay, sorry, I just want to ask a couple of questions since we're on this topic. So I know you can't speak for everyone, but your bank specifically, and you might know of others, would you accept just a regular Michigan ID? It does not necessarily have to be a driver's license.
Yes, as long as, because a Michigan ID is an acceptable form of ID, it just still has to be enforced, meaning it has not been expired. I always tell folks when I'm opening accounts that they had an expired ID, either license or that, if they come back with even the piece of paper form stamped to that not paperclip, but stapled to it, showing that they've renewed it, that paper form has the information that shows that it's not expired anymore and then it's being updated. It's when it's out of date that it becomes an issue.
So
Great
thank you
question.
for that. this will give me just to take a quick minute here. If you are listening today and you're in the Kalamazoo County area, we do have a mobile ID unit that does make stops even here at Michigan Works sometimes. So if you do have questions about getting a Michigan ID, if you do not have one currently, please reach out to Michigan Works here in Kalamazoo, and we can connect you with how to get that back to what I would say, help get you that ID. So, all right, sorry, but back to you, Mike.
No, that's all right. This is, we're all about sharing information and becoming more knowledgeable as we go along. And we're going to cover a lot of information. So, yes, like I said, stop me as I'm going because I'm not looking at the other screen. So, when you think about savings and checking accounts, I'm just going to jump to the next screen here. You want to, have kind of like a checklist. Think of what you're going to need to bring. And, in the guide, it's going to give you a bigger list. And I talk about some of this. So you want to have information that is up to date as soon as possible. You want to make sure when you come in, they're going to ask you quite a few questions online or in person. Because like I said, we have to verify who you are. Then there's going to be certain points where you can opt in or kind of opt in out of certain products and services. They're going to ask you those questions so you can make a decision. They are going to ask you when you come in to open an account to make a deposit. They may have, and they should let you know upfront if there is a requirement for a deposit, what size that might be. They shouldn't, go through the whole process and all of a sudden, hey, you need $1,000 to make the, open your account. That should be all disclosed up front. You'll receive disclosures that to be able to take home and read. You're going to have documents to sign, which are going to be your signature cards, which they will be, showing that you agree to the terms and conditions of your account. And this is the time you can ask questions that you might have on your mind. And of course, not everybody is approved for an account because the banks go out there and they look at history and they look to see what information is out there that's being reported. And that comes through, and I forget the name of the organization that most banks use nowadays, ChexSystems. There we are. And they're looking, and ChexSystems provides us with information. And if you think it's not correct, we are required to provide you a form that you can then reach out to ChexSystems to find out what information is being supplied. I always tell folks, I go through the process. If that they're declined, there's a chance that you need to look at that and figure out, because we don't know what is being reported. If you came in, you sat with me 17 years ago when I was in the retail bank, I couldn't tell you what was being reported. All I could see was that I couldn't move forward. And that was the determination based on ChexSystems. I would then give you a piece of paper saying, here, you reach out to the XYZ, and they are going to provide you the information and what you need to move forward. Sometimes that customer has come back with a form that shows that they have resolved their issue and are now in good standing and they can move forward in opening an account. So it's not something that will stop you from moving forward, but it's something you might need to find out why it's being reported if you're not knowledgeable of something out there. It's not saying that they have everything correct. Just like a credit report, there can be incorrect information that has been put on or underneath your name, but it's done by somebody else. So in the guide, you'll see and there's the ChexSystems information for you right there. So if you haven't or don't think you're on that, you can go online and look to see what's out there. They can just give you some information. But this is a great spot. If you think there's a problem, it's always better to know before you move forward.
And Mike,
that gives you some steps on how. Yes, go ahead.
All right. Going back, looking at it. So there is a credit pool, a credit check on applicants when they apply for membership.
No, it is not. It is not a credit check. It's different.
So is it a soft pull? Like, what is it? You know, for those that may be concerned about it or
No,
trying to read through.
right. Check systems is not part of credit. Credit is run by Experian, TransUnion, and I forget the third one right off the top of my head. I always remember 2 out of the 3. That's credit, and that's based on your credit scores and based on credit history. Check systems is information that banking systems have sent into them for customers, say that are leave their bank. So let's just pick XYZ Bank, and John Smith left the bank and had overdrafts of $300. So XYZ Bank will report John Smith to Check Systems saying, hey, he owes us $300. Check Systems will take that information, put it on a database. So now then Bank ABC has John Smith in front of them. John Smith wants to open an account. They type in the pertinent information, social security number, all that stuff in the system, presses a button, and it goes to Check System. It runs through the database immediately, within 30 seconds. Usually there's a response back, and it says, this person has an issue, and it will say, depending upon the bank's guidelines, they may say based on, the bank's guidelines, it may say you cannot move forward because of an issue on Check Systems. Then we would give them Check Systems information because we don't know this. This it's kind of the same thing as a credit check. When we get a decline on a credit request, we don't know why a customer at the banking level, when you're working with a bank manager or retail staff in the building, they're not given why you're declined. All they know is you're declined. And they need you then to they'll give you a form to reach out to Experian or TransUnion to figure out why you got a decline on your credit. And the same thing with Check Systems, but it's not the same. It's a completely different animal. Did that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. But just like your credit report, like I said, you can file a dispute if history is incorrect. And here it gives you some guidelines and how to go about looking at that history and filing that dispute challenge because it's important that if it's wrong, that it is fixed, right? Because we as financial institutions don't want to report or make a decision on information that is wrong. So, possible options is, looking at, depending upon what you have, for a challenge, look, if you don't have enough money for an account or the fees are too high, what are other low cost options out there? Negative information, is there second chance checking accounts? And there are some institutions that offer second chance checking accounts if you're on Check Systems. Now, I can't, unfortunately, I do not know the institutions and the terms and conditions on those second chance accounts. So I can't tell you plus or minuses for or against. Now, like I said, when you're opening an account, they're not pulling a credit score. But if you apply for credit, you're going to get information out there. So if there's an issue, what can you do? How can you change that narrative? And one of the other sessions will go in much more greater depth. Of course, without a social security number, you're not going to, very honestly, you're not going to be able to move forward. You need to have a social security number, or you have to have a corresponding information that's been authorized by the Social Security Office if you're not a nationalized citizen. And I'm not even going to, unfortunately, I'm just going to stay out of that conversation because I don't, know all the ins and outs of that. I cannot open a particular account. That's where with that relationship, you can look at different options that are available to you. We kind of covered a lot of stuff, but it kind of is a high level looking at the ins and outs of opening an account, checking account, all that good stuff. Of course, a key takeaway of managing your account is I tell folks in today's environment, everybody should be able to manage their checking and savings account because you have online access and understanding what you're doing and how you're managing it. So I always tell folks that, number one, almost check your checking account on a daily basis online because I don't like a surprise to pop up. Meaning if I all of a sudden I see a charge, and it's happened in the past. I went shopping one day and I had, I don't know what happened, but by the time I got home, I got a call from our fraud department because I had $9.99 Apple Pay charges on my debit card that I had used at a merchant. So I couldn't track down the merchant, but all of a sudden, by the time I got home, I had over $100 of charges, and the fraud department called me up and said, "Hey, did you make those charges?" So not every fraud department is going to catch that activity. It may be something as simple as a 12-cent transaction that pops up all of a sudden, just randomly. Don't discount that kind of activity. That's why you want to check every day what's happening in your account. And make sure if you write a check, because I still write old-fashioned checks. My kids are pretty much all electronic. And so if they do a transaction, it happens overnight. Where I write a check for my mortgage, it takes 7 to 10 days for it to go through my account. So I manage that to make sure that my funds are available for that. Understand what interest rates you're getting on your money. Make sure you're in an account that matches your activity because you don't want an account that tells you can only have 10 transactions before you run into an issue. So it's all about understanding the terms and conditions of your account as you go through the process. Again, read the rules and terms and conditions of the account. One key thing I will tell you is a kind of a tip. There is called Regulation D, and it has to do with savings accounts. Based on the federal regulations that the banks have and are required to follow, you're only allowed to take your money out a certain amount of time on a savings account before the bank is forced to then tell you that you're not treating your savings account like a savings account. You're treating it more like a checking account, right? If you go in today and put $20 in, tomorrow you take 10 out, next day you put 20 in, take 10 out. After a certain point in time, the bank receives a notice. They have to follow rules. They will tell you that, hey, we have to change your account or you have to change your habit because it's not following what they call Reg D. And if you do it too much, then they'll be, I hate to say this, but they're forced to follow that regulation. So they'll say, we need to move your account. You need to change your account into a checking. You need to come in and open a checking account because that's money that goes in and out. The idea of a savings account, it stays in there for a longer period of time than say 24 and 48 hours in this example. Again, review your statements because you only have a certain period of time to challenge an issue in your statement. After a certain period of time, you need to read your terms and conditions because it may be different for each financial institutions in their challenging period. You can, based on their sophistication of services, they may set up email or text alerts if it's possible. And of course, some will have two-step authentication up there. I always tell folks, especially if you're walking around and you connect to any open email or not email, website, not website, but internet connection. So you have that the library and your phone is just connecting to the random Wi-Fi. Don't go on your bank because you're exposing yourself to fraud, because that's not going to be a protected location for it. Again, think about when you're in a checking account. Don't know of any checking accounts that have a limit or a minimum or a maximum amount of transactions. I have heard and seen ATM cards that will have limits based on the account style that you have. So again, read and ask questions when you're using an ATM card to see what they are. I will tell you, if you're using your ATM card at ATM network that is not branded, again, they say you're at Comerica, you can go to, I'll pick on PNC. If I go to PNC, I'm going to put my card in and I want $20. I should see a note from PNC saying they're going to charge me $4 for this transaction. So I know I'm getting charged from PNC for accessing their system. And also I know I'm going to get charged from Comerica Bank, or I may not, depending upon my type of account. So understanding that, then of course, understanding how to fill out a check and do it the right way is always important. Understand your overdraft coverage and fees. If you opt in or opt out of a program, they help cover those charges. Remember, at the end of the day, the financial institution has the option to decide to cover or not to cover a non-sufficient funds presentation on a check, or return the check to that merchant. And the fees can be significant. I always tell folks I hate to charge an overdraft fee on a cup of coffee. If the cup of coffee was $4 and this is your first overdraft fee, let's say my charge is $25. I couldn't tell you, don't hold my feet to the fire if it's $25 or $100 because I'm not in that realm anymore. So I'm just going to use $25 as the example. But you have a $3 cup of coffee. We paid that $3 cup of coffee, but you had it multiple times, and we decided now we're going to charge you an overdraft fee. All of a sudden, that $3 becomes $28. It's an expensive cup of coffee. So look at how to manage that risk. Excuse me. Think about direct deposit. Direct deposit is a really safe and secure way to get money into your account. Typically, if you're getting direct deposit, it shows up that day as a credit, and it's fully deposited that evening when your transactions are completed. Saves you time, right? You don't have to drive. You don't have to pick up your paper check. You don't have to drive to the bank and wait in line, and it's just done for you. And it's easy to keep track of. A lot of employers offer it because they prefer to do that for their employees. Think about, I always tell folks that I prefer, if I'm going to electronically make payments, to control that payment. I do not do the second item here, which they call automatic debit. I will set up in my bill pay a payment schedule. So an example, I know I pay my car insurance every month on the 15th of the month. So I will make sure that I will have the funds. I make my payment on the 10th, and I schedule it, and it automatically is sent out. But I can hold the power of making that payment. When you hold, or not hold, but when you create an automatic debit, you give permission to the merchant and or the other party to withdraw those funds from your account. And they're not going to know if your account has enough funds to cover that transfer request. So it's important that if you do an automatic debit, you're always going to have funds to cover that. because I've seen a lot of times where individuals get caught in that trap. They say you can take the money out on the 15th because of a holiday. In the weekend, they get paid. It changes their pay date from the 15th to the 17th. And all of a sudden, they're going to have an overdraft because that merchant is still doing that transaction on the 15th. Again, understanding how to fill out a check. If you have questions, ask, and we can go over it later. Again, I tell folks to go online, review your account, because we're all so bad of keeping track of what we're doing with our accounts. Read the information about your account. Be knowledgeable, because you're going to sign off on information that they're going to put in front of you. Again, review your statements. If you can, set up email or text alerts. Keep track of holds on your debit card. So if you're going to a hotel and use your debit card, a lot of times they'll put a hold on your card, and it's going to be on there for 7 to 10 days. That's even after you paid them. So it's important to understand that. I always tell folks never to use a debit card for payment at a hotel. I would always use a credit card, so you do not tie up your cash. Practice safe procedures on your online information. Of course, I always tell folks if you're not keeping track, figure out an Excel spreadsheet, keep track of what you're doing. If you're writing checks and doing it online, so you know that you're never going to exceed your amount in your checking account. There's a lot of mobile apps that will help keep track of what you're doing if you enter it in. See if there's stuff out there that will help you. Of course, the financial institution, I talk a lot about ATMs and how they work. Just want to make sure I tell folks when you're now going to ATM machine, just if something looks off about the ATM machine and it's not right, make sure if it looks off, walk away because it may have been tampered with and we don't want your information to be compromised. Debit cards with the logo, you can make a decision if you want to use it as an ATM card or a credit card with some credit protections. But remember, it's automatically accessing your checking account, and you need to make sure that that's happening. I have used my card as credit on the merchant, and one of the things is majority of merchants, when you do it that way, that transaction comes out immediately. But some merchants sometimes will not transmit that information right away. They may wait a day or two so they have a bigger, what they call, batch. And so you need to monitor that to make sure that everything that you've spent money on is showing up on your account. This is, you're seeing a lot of commercials on person-to-person payments. I always tell people you need to be really careful of what you're doing and how you're doing it, because if you make a mistake here, there is not anything that financial institution really can do to help you out, because you're authorizing a transfer of funds, and we're really just sending the money through a third-party provider. You provided us all the information. We have no way of knowing if it's right or wrong. That third party is the one that would have to say that we're going to send it back to you. So an example, if Mike decides to do a person-to-person transfer, and he's going to send it to Amanda, I need to make sure I provide Amanda she gives me all the information that's pertinent. So if I accidentally type in the wrong letter, and all of a sudden that money goes to Dewan, Dewan can decide, hey, I'm going to keep that money. Financial institution has no leverage to have Dewan return that funds to me. So I'm out whatever I sent Dewan if Dewan doesn't send it back. So now I have to send money again to Amanda if I owe it to her for a purchase of a product. So it's really a rapidly changing area. Maybe there'll be more rules and regulations, but currently right now it's pretty wide open. Sometimes, I hate to say it, but paying somebody in cash or with a check has a little bit more protection than sending it through your phone. Make sure you are 100% sure that the party that you're sending the money to receives it. A good way, if you're going to do something like that, send them $1 first, right? It might cost you $1 to send it, so it's going to cost you $2, right? One to send and one cost you $1 to send it, and they receive $1. But if you send it and it doesn't show up and they say, hey, I never got it, the worst that happened is you only lost what? $1. How much time we got? We're about down to 9 minutes here. So there's mobile wallet apps that you can look at online to see if it makes sense for you. We covered a lot of stuff. There's also out there, and in credit, they would talk about prepaid cards. So we're not really going to cover prepaid cards here. You will know as an employee, your employer may offer you a payroll card, which is reloaded every 2 weeks or a week based on your job. And so it's important you protect that card and you know the terms and conditions, because if you don't follow the rules, it can get fairly expensive to access the money that you've earned out there. And this is just information about some of this. So if you're not knowledgeable, go ahead and read this about prepaid cards. Gives you some ideas what, if you lose it, you need to make sure that you protect yourself. You call right away. Just like a credit card, make copies of it so you have front and back, meaning the back typically has the phone number you need to call right away. The front, of course, because it has all the pertinent information, all the numbers. So you can stop that lost card from being accessed. It's important. So we're really at the end here of 66 slides. It's kind of amazing. I went through a lot of slides here. But now we're going to open it up for questions, because we want you to have an ability to ask some questions, because I know I covered a lot of ground over this last 50 minutes. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to listen to you guys and see if you have any questions.
I just want to first of all say thank you, Mike. That was great information. And I'm really glad that we decided to record this so we can share it with other folks that weren't able to join us today. So we appreciate your time again. I did have one quick question. In the beginning of your presentation, you talked a lot about customer service and different, making sure that you're picking the right institution that meets your needs from that perspective. We do have at Michigan Works a lot of folks that come in seeking services because they are English learners or English as a second language. I don't know if you can speak to Comerica or banks in general, but how is somebody that might need translation or documents in different languages, how well do banks accommodate that?
Great question. So some of the rules and regulations speak towards what a bank cannot do when we have a client who is not proficient with English. And so we have to follow certain guidelines. So it's always helpful if that person has somebody with them, and or the institution has somebody on their staff or is able to access. So like I could say that Comerica Bank keeps a registry of our employees that speak second languages. And I always tell folks, then now it's setting up a time to come visit. So then they have the opportunity to schedule time with someone who might be able to translate to, answer questions in the process. I've worked with some folks that are Far East Japanese and Chinese, and English is their third language, right? And so using that translator is very beneficial because they're going to still sign. Typically, they're going to sign their name with their characters of their language on their signature card. They've already done other aspects. They've already gotten their EIN from the Social Security office because they're allowed to work in the U.S. They have a passport, so we use their passport because it's a recognized document that we can use. Now, providing them the same document that they're signing in English in their native language, typically that is not a possibility because, again, that's a federal regulation on how we have to conduct business. But we're here to help and explain everything as possible and or the translator. So I've worked with translators that have come in when I was in the retail banking world to help them navigate and provide answers that client may have. And it's something we're all, pretty much across the board used to.
I was gonna say, thank you. No, that does answer my question. So, you can't, I'm just saying like this will be something that we can share with our customers and the folks that are on this call. So thank you for answering that question.
Nope. That's a great question.
Yeah, I got a question. What are the different types of accounts, not checking or savings, when it comes to, aren't there certain accounts that you can open just to draw interest or just to pay your bills?
Right. So you can, if you're looking just to pay, we'll just go with the second part, like you want to just pay bills, right? So I would recommend, not knowing anything else on the surface, say you're getting, I'm just going to make an assumption, you get paid once a week, right? And you get a direct deposit. So based on that information, I would say, okay, your direct deposit is going to waive our monthly service charge, but this product is going to provide you web banking, which will allow you to go online and set up. So you can set up, say your car insurance is Allstate, and you have Consumers Energy because you have a gas furnace. So you can go into what we call web bill pay and set up these customers into your web bill pay. This allows you then to choose to pay electronically and or write a check to them, whichever you prefer. You don't have to write a check or other examples. You don't have to pay them electronically. The convenience is when you do it electronically, you tell the system to do it on a certain date, it's going to happen. So an example, I just went out on my web bill pay, and so I made a determination on Friday I'm paying, my car insurance, the gas, and my phone bill, because I still have a landline. Don't ask me why, but some of us still have old technology laying around in the house. But the system automatically now, I don't have to go back on Friday and write a check to these folks. The system's automatically going to pay it. And so when they process the transactions at that night, it's like the bank receives the check from those entities, and they're going to send money out of my account. Now, savings account, you just want to put the money in there, say you have a goal of saving money for a car. So, and you say it's going to take 24 months, and then, just again, making up some information here. And so, you're going to put $50 a month into your savings account. Well, the important question is when you open a savings account, and that's the only account you're going to have, is there a minimum balance requirement? If there is, and say that minimum balance requirement is $500, and they're going to charge you $5 a month, they have the account when it falls underneath that balance amount. So now I would tell you, as somebody who wants to build a relationship with you, that a savings account doesn't fit because we can get you in a checking account and you're not going to receive any fees because you're doing the direct deposit. But if you're just putting $50 in a savings account, it's going to take you 11 months to not have a fee on your account. So you're going to pay me $55 to have that savings account. Now, I have people tell me that's okay. I'm okay with paying a fee. And I always tell folks, I'd rather not have your money. I want you to keep that $5. Use a product or service that fits and change when you've saved up your money. You can save that 50, you could save that 50 in your checking account for 10 months, and then open a savings account and be fine. Of course, again, making that relationship, depending upon the institution, if that checking account has a direct deposit, it may automatically come with a free savings account. So asking those questions. So it's kind of really a roundabout way, but that help you out?
Answer?
Mhm.
All right. We're almost out of time. I have one more question that was in the chat from Jacob, who joined us online today. He's asking what's the best way to build wealth and credit as parents for our children?
Wow, that's a great question. That's,
Whole workshop in
we have
itself.
4 more hours. So again, not knowing the age group. So I'm going to use my daughter as an example here because she just had a baby last year. So she has decided to start what they call as a 529 account, which is a savings account to help save money to her college education for her child. And so this will, over a long period of time, build wealth towards that college payment, and or be based on other factors and rules, maybe something that the child can use if they decide not to go to college, and or the parent can use if the child does not go to parents. I don't know all the ins and outs, say, of a 529 account. The key component of it is that she is systematically saving for that future event. Now, and that's building wealth. Credit is something you can manage, and there's going to be a credit module. I always tell folks is you can manage your credit because 35% of your credit score is based on your activity and how you make payments. And so it's an important part of knowing that and understanding that, and that will be a key component of that session. So I won't really get into the credit aspect, but when you're trying to build wealth, it's all about creating and doing something systematic. I always tell folks very small steps lead to big results, right? You can't climb the mountain without having a few, small steps going up the side. If you do one after the other, you're going to get to the top. It's when we run into roadblocks that we stop moving forward. So how do we get around them? And some of these sessions are going to help you and give you ideas and thought processes to help you be successful. Great question. Anything else?
Nothing more in the chat, and we are out of time. Dewan did make a mention, though, that the June 6th workshop is based on credit. So that might be of interest to you, Jacob, if you are interested in learning more about credit and credit scores.
I misspoke, Amanda. All right, don't mean to cut you off. I looked at the wrong note. Excuse me. It's June 22nd, not June 6th. It's the 6th module, but June 22nd.
June 22nd. So we've got a couple of weeks till then. Our next workshop that is going to be presented through one of our banking professionals will be May the 25th, again at 2 o'clock. So please make sure to check our events page at michiganworksouthwest.org and or check out the Eventbrite link directly through Eventbrite. So if there's no other questions, we are out of time. Again, thank you, Mike. Any last words of wisdom for us?
Nope, I appreciate everybody. If you have questions, send them in. I'll be more than happy to answer. I know I am going to be on a couple other sessions. I think, if I remember correctly, I am on next session next week also. for the next one that we do on May 25th.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. Enjoy the beautiful sunshine and the rest of your day.